Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for coming tonight to the Arvada Police Department Awards Ceremony. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to be here with us. I also want to thank the Arvada Center and its Executive Director, Clark Johnson, for allowing us to hold our ceremony here in the Black Box Theater. It's really a great venue to be able to hold this ceremony. Let me also take a moment to acknowledge our city and elected officials who are here tonight. And I'd also like to make sure that we include a very special welcome to State Attorney General John Suthers. In addition, we have our Mayor, Mark Williams, with us here tonight. Thanks, Mark, for being here. We have Council members Shelley Cook, Mark McGough, Bob Pfeiffer, and I believe Rachel Zinzinger may also be here as well. In addition to that, we also have our city manager, Mark Devon, who's trying to sneak in around the corner, and our deputy city manager, Bill Ray. Thank you all for being here tonight. I would ask everyone to please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Arvada Police Department Honor Guard, and the national anthem will be sung tonight by members of the Arvada High School Chorale, led by Nate Abelos.
Stand by. Honor guard. Attach hook. Dress center. Dress. Ready. Hook. Right shoulder. Hook. Colors. Cut. Color turn. Horse. Honor guard. Hook. Present. Horse. Sir, the colors are present.
Present the colors.
Order. Hook. Left about. Hook. Honor guard. Hook. Present. Hook. Order. Hook. Color turn. Horse. Honor guard. Hook. Color center. Peace. color, center, peace. Honor guard, forward, halt.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Arvada Police Department Honor Guard and the Arvada High School Choir. Thank you very much. You may be seated. All of us as police officers raised our hands and have taken the oath to serve and protect our community and to take on the challenges this profession presents. This job tests your mettle. If I have done my job right, I have hired the right people, those who are decent and honest, brave and dedicated, who have been provided the necessary training and tools to accomplish their task. What trait is so crucial to this profession? I submit to you that it's character. Character is the combination of qualities that distinguishes one person or group from another. It is moral and ethical strength, integrity, and fortitude. Police officers do a job that is understood by so few, yet critiqued by so many. To do this job well, it requires an abundance of character. In the 27 years that I've served with the men and women of the Arvada Police Department, I can tell you that the members of our department are a breed apart. It is my pleasure and honor to work with you. Tonight, you will hear about our character. You will also hear about the character of the citizens of our great city. The police department's command staff and I are proud to present these awards tonight to a very deserving group of individuals. Before we get started with all of the awards, we have a very special honor tonight to be bestowed upon one of our officers this evening. I would like to ask State Attorney General John Suthers and our Arvada Police Department Master Sergeant Larry Bennington to please come to the stage.
Thank you, Chief, and I'm so very pleased to join all of you this evening. Throughout my 35-year legal career, I've welcomed each and every opportunity that I've been presented to honor the men and women who serve our state as peace officers and have the frontline responsibility to enforce the law. And tonight, I'm again grateful for the opportunity to do exactly that. In my time working with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, I've had the distinct pleasure and honor of serving with thousands of dedicated police officers, sheriff's deputies, investigators, prosecutors, and all other personnel who keep our community safe. Their devotion to making Colorado a better place to live inspires me every day. It was for that reason that as chairman of the Colorado Peace Officer and Standard Training Board, otherwise known as POST, I decided to create an annual Excellence in Law Enforcement Award to honor those who personify the very best of Colorado's law enforcement community. The Colorado Attorney General's Excellence in Law Enforcement Award was initiated 4 years ago and is given annually to one of Colorado's almost 15,000 certified peace officers who have served their community in an exemplary fashion over an extended period of time. I knew from personal experience that there are numerous worthy recipients for such an award, and I believe that over time this could become a very prestigious honor in Colorado's law enforcement community. The quality of this year's nominees has shown the truth of that expectation. During its short history, the recipients of the Excellence in Law Enforcement Award have exemplified the type of individual I intended to honor when we instituted the award. The inaugural award went to Sergeant Joe Young of the Aurora Police Department, whose actions during his then 34 years of public service included numerous occasions where his leadership saved the lives of both colleagues and citizens. The 2010 award went to Sergeant Stephen White of the Lakewood Police Department, who has distinguished himself as one of Colorado's finest law enforcement officers during his 37 years of service. And last year's award went to investigator Robert Fuller, who's been with the Denver District Attorney's Office for several years and was crucial in solving a series of gang-related crimes and breaking the code of silence that often stonewalls gang prosecutions. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we honor the 2012 Excellence in Law Enforcement Award recipient, Master Sergeant Larry Bennington. A 42-year veteran of the Arvada Police Department, Master Sergeant Bennington embodies the very spirit of this award, serving the Arvada community in an exemplary fashion for his entire law enforcement career. At an early age, Larry knew that he wanted to be a police officer. However, at age 18, he was too young to become one. So Larry started his public service career in 1966 by enlisting with the United States Army. He became a Green Beret with the United States Army Special Forces and served in Vietnam, where he earned a Purple Heart. It also indicates on my material here that Larry was held as a prisoner of war by the Viet Cong for 19 days, and I asked them about that tonight, and it wasn't nearly as dramatic as I thought it might be, and I said, so if you ever run for office, you really need to embellish that story a little bit. But Larry completed 4 years of service in the Army before joining the Arvada Police Department on July 1st, 1970. In nominating Sergeant Bennington for this award, Chief Wick wrote, "Sergeant Bennington's leadership style is such that he provides superior supervisory support, but allows the team to take credit for its accomplishments. It is difficult to sum up Sergeant Bennington's police career in simply a handful of remarkable employment moments. Sergeant Bennington has been a consistent, loyal, and dedicated employee of our city for more than 4 decades. His integrity has never been in question, and his love of service is clearly demonstrated with every shift." Chief Wick is correct. Sergeant Bennington's accomplishments are impressive and difficult to summarize. However, as we honor him this evening, it's important that we attempt to capture some of his career high points. For example, during the 1970s, Sergeant Bennington was an executive officer on the SWAT team. He was an operations officer on a team composed of Arvada, Lakewood, and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms agents that netted 60 major arrests in the 1970s. Larry was the catalyst behind the much-acclaimed Race-A-Cop program for 10 years. That program enabled Arvada Police to reach thousands of young people with traffic safety education. Throughout the 1970s, as he rose in the ranks from corporal to sergeant, Larry was assigned to supervise the Special Investigations Unit in 1979 and went on to implement the DARE program in 1988. In 1979, Sergeant Bennington and his Community Services Unit also received the Unit of the Year Award from the Colorado Prevention Association. Formerly, Larry was an instructor in officer survival, arrest control techniques, and baton, and currently Larry is a firearms instructor for Arvada and at Red Rocks Community College Police Academy. Additionally, he's participated in the Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics and Cops and Kids. In May 2004, Larry was named the City of Arvada Employee of the Month. Throughout his tenured and storied career, it impresses me that Larry has managed to keep pace with policing technological advances. It especially impresses me because I personally am a technological dinosaur, and Larry's a few years older than I am, so I'm really impressed that he's up to date with all the technological advances. Sergeant Bennington has supervised every unit in the department and even reorganized the management of property and evidence. So it's no surprise that Larry was a core member of the accreditation team that got the department reaccredited in 1996. Moreover, Sergeant Bennington is involved in the field training program that trains new officers. Larry consistently mentors and trains new officers and newly promoted sergeants, something he still does to this day. In 2011, and this is incredible to me in many ways, Sergeant Bennington was approached about the potential for working the graveyard shift. This is after, 40-some years in the department. This was due to several organizational needs, which included the mentoring of a newly promoted sergeant and the leadership Sergeant Bennington would provide to a group of young officers. Larry readily accepted this challenge, and after 42 years of service, is back working the most difficult of hours. Whereas others may have balked at the shift change, Sergeant Bennington saw it as an opportunity to continue mentoring and training new officers and newly promoted sergeants, and continues to do so to this day. About this, Chief Wick wrote, When asked to assist, Larry's one of the first to volunteer to help a citizen or member of the department. Without doubt, one of Larry's strengths is his ability to apply his years of experience, common sense, intelligence, and creativity to solve problems. Larry's ability extends beyond just helping out the officers who work for him, but goes to helping solve management problems organization-wide. His integrity has never been in question, and Sergeant Bennington's love of service is clearly demonstrated with every shift. Even today, he patiently listens to citizens and empathizes with them to clearly understand their concerns. Without any intent and without wanting credit, Master Sergeant Bennington has crafted and positively influenced the culture of the Arvada Police Department. As Chief Wick wrote, his iconic presence and leadership will be a legendary legacy to the department and to the city of Arvada. It is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, and for many others, that we are here today to salute Master Sergeant Larry Bennington, to thank him for his service and for serving as an example that he set for the peace officers in Arvada and throughout the state. And with that, it's my great honor to present Sergeant Bennington with the 2012 Attorney General's Excellence in Law Enforcement Award. In addition to the award that Larry has received here tonight, I want you to know that this plaque hangs in the lobby of the Attorney General's office downtown, and his name has already been added as the 2012 award winner. So with that, let's take a few photographs.
Thank you so much. How's that? Well, that really is quite an honor for Master Sergeant Bennington as well as the Arvada Police Department, and he really has done an incredible job. And Attorney General Suthers, thank you so much for being here tonight and recognizing Sergeant Bennington for that award. Next, I would like to recognize a number of individuals in our department for their years of service in the police department. First, I would like to recognize our 20-year employee, Diane Russell. Is Diane here tonight? Oh, there she is. If Diane will come down, that'd be great. Not that way. Actually, while Diane's coming down, there's some stairs right here that won't let you up on stage, so you'll want to circle around the stage either way as you come up here. Diane, thank you for your 25 years of service, or 20 years. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, I would like to ask Commander Lee Pinover and Commander Link Strait to be recognized for 25 years of service. For 30 years of service, we'd like to recognize Officer Bill DeLay. For 35 years of service, Mary Miklos, Jim Glassman, and Detective Scott Buckley. And as we move to our last one, our 40 year of service, I'd like to ask Sergeant Mick Romer to come down here. Much like Sergeant Bennington in his 42 years of police service, Sergeant Mick Romer is another one of these sergeants who has been an exemplary leader in our department, who has mentored a lot of people, including myself. And I think that we all recognize and value what Sergeant Romer brings to the table. And Mick, thank you for being here tonight, and I'd like to recognize you for your 40 years of service. So as we move into the main portion of our awards, I would like to ask Chris Redding and Joseph Sandoval if they would start making their way down to the stage. On September 25th, one of our officers was dispatched to West 53rd and Dover Street, and when he arrived, he was met by Arvada Utilities workers Chris Redding and Joseph Sandoval. Joseph and Chris advised our officers that they had been working in the area most of the morning, and that just prior to contacting the police, they observed a suspicious female walking westbound on 53rd Avenue. Chris and Joe were able to give a complete description of the female, who they stated was eyeing them while they were pacing the street. As she was doing that, a male pulled up in an older red, green, and blue Ford pickup truck and parked it next to their work vehicle. Moments later, the female entered an unoccupied Honda, which had previously been parked near the intersection where she was pacing. The male exited his truck and got into the vehicle with her. Because of this suspicious activity, Chris and Joseph walked over to the truck the male had parked and looked inside. Both observed the ignition to the trunk to be punched and decided to contact the Arvada Police Department. Because of Chris and Joseph's astute observations that day and their willingness to get involved, their actions led directly to the recovery of a stolen Ford truck and Kawasaki motorcycle from Aurora, the recovery of a stolen Honda from Wheat Ridge, and the recovery of 3 stolen Honda Accords and a Ford Probe from Arvada, all from this one observation. 3 suspects were arrested on charges of aggravated motor vehicle theft, including the 2 that Chris and Joe observed, and 2 of the 3 also had outstanding warrants for their arrest. It's amazing to see the dominoes that took place in this and how they fell, that just upon seeing something so simple that just isn't quite right, led to something much more substantial. Chris and Joe, thank you very much for doing just that, and I'd like to present each of you with a citizen's commendation. And Joe couldn't be with us tonight, so we'll make sure that he gets that award. Also, as you guys come down, if you wouldn't mind just being to my left over here, that'd be great for the photographer who wants to get some pictures for us. Next, I'd like to ask Troy Enderly if Troy would come down. Sometimes we are thrown into a situation where we must make a split-second decision whether to get involved or not. Troy found himself in that very scenario on August 24th when a vehicle he was a passenger in came upon a man bleeding heavily at the intersection of 58th and Pierce Street. Troy had the driver of the vehicle he was with stop so that he could render aid to the victim. Troy used his previous training from working on an ambulance in New Orleans to render first aid, to slow the bleeding, and to try to keep the victim calm while also reporting the incident to the police department. Troy was able to provide officers information that helped lead to the arrest of a perpetrator minutes after they arrived on scene. Unfortunately, the victim's injuries were too extensive and he passed away. But had Troy not made that split-second decision to get involved, the victim would not have had the comfort of being cared for in those moments, and there could have been other victims of this perpetrator who Troy helped to apprehend. I'd like to present this citizen's commendation on behalf of the entire Arvada Police Department. And Troy, thank you very much. Now I would like to call up Krista Brown, Shane Anderson, Raymond Craig, and Zeke Fobb. As I just mentioned, sometimes our efforts do not provide the outcome we desire. Never is that more difficult than when the victim is a child. But that doesn't make the willingness to help and the effort any less heroic. That is the case with these four individuals. On June 4th, our police were dispatched to a community swimming pool where a 4-year-old boy had drowned. Upon investigation and review of the surveillance tape, it was clear that these four people were instrumental in the effort to save the child's life. Krista Brown was in the pool enjoying time with her daughter when another child alerted the adults that there was a little boy underwater. Krista dove from the middle of the pool and was the first to reach the little boy. She grabbed him and, in what we thought was an amazing act of strength, literally projected herself and this child from the water. She handed the boy to the awaiting security guards, and she quickly got out of the pool and began CPR on the child. Shane Anderson happened to be driving by the pool when he noticed all of the activity. A resident in the community, he stopped his vehicle and attended to the little boy's sister, who was traumatized by watching what was happening. Raymond Craig was being trained that day as one of the security guards for the pool and quickly reacted to the crisis by assisting Krista with the CPR efforts. Zeke Fobb, who was training Raymond, is also a security guard for the pool. He is the one who grabbed the child from Krista when she pushed him to the surface. He also assisted with CPR efforts. Each of these people reacted immediately without regard to their own safety in order to try to save a child's life. As officers, we can't help but be touched by their heroic efforts, regardless of the outcome. We thank each of you and are honored to present you with a citizen's commendation. Next, I would like to ask Jonathan Steele to come up. On Monday, May 14th, the Arvada Police Department was notified of an armed robbery that had taken place on Ralston Road. A male party had displayed a handgun and forced the store clerk to open the register. The male then fled on foot to the rear of the store. Officers were quickly on scene and set up a perimeter. However, they were unable to locate the suspect. A canine officer recovered a discarded handgun in an adjacent open field that was believed to be the weapon used in the robbery. During the course of the investigation, a number of residents in the surrounding locations were interviewed, including Jonathan Steele, who lives directly west of the store and whose residence overlooks the field where the handgun was recovered. The residents were given a detailed description of what the suspect looked like. On Tuesday, May 15th, Jonathan observed a suspicious vehicle that was not known to the area arrive and stop near the adjacent field. He saw a male passenger get out of the vehicle and begin looking through the field as if he was searching for something. Jonathan noticed that the male seemed to match the description that he was given of the robbery suspect. When the male returned to the vehicle, Jonathan wrote down the license plate number, called 911, and provided a detailed description of the vehicle, its occupants, and its direction of travel. Subsequently, the vehicle was spotted by one of our officers who made a traffic stop on the vehicle. 4 parties were detained, one of whom was ultimately arrested and charged with the aggravated robbery. Without the observations of Mr. Steele and his willingness to get involved, this case would likely have not been solved so quickly. Because of this, Jonathan, I am honored to present you with this Citizen's Commendation, and thank you very much for your work. These next two awards are for citizens who have chosen to become involved in their community on a routine basis. I would like to ask Lloyd Ferguson and Bob Vernetti to join me on stage. Lloyd and Bob are both graduates of our Citizens Police Academy and are members of its Alumni Association. They regularly volunteer their time and energy to the Arvada Police Department. Our annual bike rodeo would not be a successful event that it is without Lloyd. I've heard numerous stories about his ingenuity in creating many aspects of the rodeo, all on a shoestring budget. In addition, Lloyd took it upon himself to create a storage mechanism for the bike rodeo materials so that we can use them in the future. Bob works with our fleet crew. He regularly assists the team with moving vehicles back and forth between police headquarters and fleet services. His nomination made special note of the fact that he can be reliably counted on at all of his volunteer shifts, and he works hard the entire time. In addition, Bob is the go-to guy for the Arvada Police Department Incident Command Vehicle. Not only does he ensure it is properly maintained, but he has also taken the initiative to transport this vehicle to special events so that the community can be a part of our police operations. The Arvada Police Department relies heavily on its incredible pool of volunteers to offer the breadth of community relations services that we do, from the Citizens Police Academy to the Shred-a-thon. It is my honor to present both of you with a Citizen's Commendation, and thank you so much for the work you do volunteering for our department. I'd also like to ask Officer Jeff Vogel, if Jeff is here, if he would join us. On June 24th this past summer, Officer Vogel was on patrol in the area of 6902 West 84th Way when he noticed a red Toyota occupied by a Hispanic male and two Hispanic females and a small child standing near the vehicle. Officer Vogel recalled a message from earlier in the shift that identified a red Toyota bearing the same license plate that had been involved in a non-custodial child abduction earlier in the day. Officer Vogel exited his patrol car and attempted contact with the parties. Upon doing so, the male party quickly began to walk away. Officer Vogel initially gave chase but decided to break off his foot pursuit due to the recognition that the larger issue was to secure the abducted child. It was found that this child was the one identified in the earlier message as having been kidnapped. Officer Vogel immediately began working to set up a perimeter to capture the Hispanic male, and other officers arrived to assist. Sergeant DeAndrea arrived on scene and coordinated the multiple units to include canines, the Denver Air Unit, and additional officers from surrounding agencies that had been requested. One of the canine units that responded was Officer Avila. Officer Avila and his dog Matzo and Officer Vogel searched the area that had been assigned to them. As they were concluding their search of that area, Officer Avila read his dog moving towards a certain apartment building. His dog alerted to a second-floor balcony, and after several commands, the suspect was taken into custody without additional issues. Without Officer Vogel's diligence, work ethic, and commitment to service, Officer Avila's confidence, competence, and strong connection with his canine partner, and Sergeant DeAndrea's ability to see the big picture and to organize, plan, and call upon outside resources, this child might not have been seen again. For their outstanding work in returning this child home safely, I am honored to present Officer Vogel with an employee commendation and Officers Avila and Sergeant DeAndrea with a department citation. Now I'd like to have Detective Mike Touchton join me. This next award is for both Officer Mike Touchton and Officer Tom Vanderveen. Unfortunately, Tom could not be here with us tonight. Detective Touchton was working the case of a serial shoplifter at an area Target store when on April 4th, at the subway at 64th and Wadsworth, was robbed. Detective Touchton quickly identified the vehicle description as being the same one used at the Target stores. He organized a special watch and conveyed the information to patrol in the event of a similar robbery. On April 5th, Officer Tom Vanderveen was responding to another subway robbery at 80th and Sheridan when he observed the suspect vehicle driving south on Sheridan. Tom pulled in behind the vehicle and was assisted in making a felony traffic stop on the car. While this sounds like a routine operation for our officers, what makes Mike and Tom's astute observations and quick thinking so important is that it had been reported that there were 2 infant children in the car when the suspects were committing the felony shoplifting. There was a concern that the children may also be in the car when the suspects were committing these armed robberies, and Detective Touchton was concerned for the welfare of the children and that the suspect could engage in additional violent behavior. When Tom made the felony stop, the 2 children were in fact asleep in the vehicle. The parents had a serious drug addiction and had often smoked heroin in their hotel room in front of the children. Jefferson County Social Services were able to intervene on behalf of the children and place them in a more stable environment while the 2 suspects were arrested and put in jail. I would like to thank Detective Touchton and Officer Vanderveen for helping to change the lives of those 2 kids for the better, and I would like to present each of you with an employee commendation. Next, I'd like to ask Officer Jason Ammon to come down. Officer Ammon showed highly professional conduct and an extremely quick assessment ability when on August 7th, 2012, he was conducting bicycle patrol in an area surrounding Memorial Park. While riding near the Wadsworth bypass, a pit bull jumped out of the open window of a slowing vehicle and charged at Officer Ammon. The dog attacked Officer Ammon, who kicked the dog and tried to block the attack with the bicycle, and who would have been authorized under these circumstances to use lethal force against the dog. However, Jason demonstrated commendable professionalism and judgment when he considered the bystanders, surrounding vehicles, and environment, and instead chose to deploy his taser instead of his firearm. In doing so, he risked further injury to himself if the taser was not immediately successful. Although he did have to deploy it twice, Jason was able to stop the attack with only minor injuries to himself and the animal. For this solid use of judgment and ability to perform under extreme pressure, I am pleased to present to you an employee commendation. Now I'd like to call up Officer James Armstrong. Is Jim here? James? Great. James' partner and colleague, Officer Dave Snelling, is not able to join us this evening. On May 29th, Officers Armstrong and Snelling responded to a traffic accident where an RTD bus ran a red light at Lamar and 58th Avenue and was struck by a 1997 Geo Metro driven by an Arvada resident. Witnesses on scene observed Mr. Baca, the driver of that vehicle, crawl out of the passenger side door and advised that he was okay. But a short time later, he clutched his chest, complaining of chest pain, and fell to the ground. Officer Armstrong was the first on scene and was advised by witnesses that Mr. Baca was having a seizure. Officer Armstrong observed that Mr. Baca appeared not to be breathing, and he could not detect a pulse, so he began CPR as Officer Snelling was arriving on scene. Officer Snelling assisted Officer Armstrong by maintaining Mr. Baca's airway and periodically checked for a pulse, but none was found. Officer Armstrong continued compressions for approximately 10 minutes until relieved by medical personnel. Although the victim had a prior medical history, including heart-related problems, the quick actions of Officer Armstrong and Snelling as well as those of the paramedics and the hospital staff, Mr. Bacchus survived the incident and was later released from the hospital. Because of their efforts, I am pleased to present both Officer Armstrong and Officer Snelling with the Lifesaver Commendation. Now I'd like to ask Laura Casares to come forward. On June 24th of this year, Officer Casares responded to a report of a male party not breathing. When she arrived, Officer Casares addressed the situation and began performing CPR until fire department personnel arrived. Because of her quick response and ability to perform life-saving measures appropriately, Officer Casares was able to revive the man prior to the fire department's arrival. Thank you for your quick action, thinking on your feet, and doing the right thing to save this man's life. And for this, I would like to present you with the Lifesaver Commendation. Now I would like to call up Detective C.J. Bickmore, Detective Mike Touchton, and Detective Clint Burhorn. The Arvada Police Department took a report of a runaway from our city in June of 2012. During the months of June and July, the grandmother of the runaway continued to call us and tell us that the runaway was staying with a 38-year-old man in a house in Westminster. There were several attempts to contact the runaway at the home in Westminster. However, the male suspect repeatedly stated she wasn't there. On July 20th, Detectives Bickmore and Touchton again attempted to contact the runaway at the home in Westminster. This time, the male suspect was very verbally aggressive, uncooperative, and stated that the juvenile was not there. Detective Bickmore spoke with the runaway's sister, who was previously staying at the house with the male suspect. She told him that her sister was in the house and was locked in a hidden compartment in the wall behind the TV in the basement. She also provided pictures of the male suspect with the juvenile and stated that the two were involved in an intimate relationship. Because of this relationship and the child was in another jurisdiction, Detectives Bickmore and Touchton decided to write a warrant for harboring a runaway, which could be executed out of Arvada. With the warrant signed, it was agreed to serve it on the morning of July 25th of this year. Detectives Bickmore, Touchton, and Burhorn went to the house with the Westminster Police Department. The Arvada detectives entered the house and quickly located the male suspect, who continued to deny that the juvenile was there. After placing him under arrest, they moved through the house and located the hidden compartment behind a very large TV in the basement. The door to the compartment was locked from the outside. When our detectives opened the walled compartment, they found the juvenile hidden in a corner in the dirt, and she was crying and shaking. Detectives Bickmore, Touchton, and Burhorn chose to pursue all avenues of investigation in order to ascertain the well-being of this juvenile. They were relentless in their efforts to find her and to get her to safety. For these efforts, I'm presenting Detectives Bickmore and Touchton with the Medal of Meritorious Service and Detective Clint Burhorn with an employee commendation. The final award of the evening is the Medal of Distinguished Service, which is awarded for an act that involves moderate risk to life of an officer. I would now like to ask Officer Chris Steiner, Officer Joe Lane, and Officer Dan Ames to come forward. On August 24th of this year, Officers Steiner and Lane responded to a report of a stabbing. They arrived to find the victim on the ground being tended to by his wife and Troy Enderly, who reported the incident and was also tending to the victim. The wife explained to Officers Steiner and Lane that she and the victim had been in a nearby residence with their friend when the suspect broke into the address and fought with her husband. After stabbing him multiple times, the suspect initially would not let her go, and the victim or their friends were not allowed to leave the residence, and she then stated that the suspect was at large somewhere in the area with their friend. At about the same time, Officer Steiner and Lane heard several excited cries for help and observed someone in the front window of the residence clawing at the blinds, trying to get out through the window. They responded to the window and were able to see the victim's friend and the suspect, who was actively and aggressively assaulting her as she was calling for help. Officer Lane directed her to exit through the back door, and he responded to that location. At this time, Officer Ames arrived on scene, and it was quickly decided that due to the violent and emergent nature of the situation, that he and Officer Steiner would force entry through the front door to allow the female a window of opportunity to exit through the back door. Officer Steiner and Ames breached the front door and engaged the suspect, drawing his attention long enough to allow the friend to escape further assault through the back door. As planned, Officer Lane was there to provide protection to her and address the suspect if he chose to give chase. Officer Steiner and Ames, though, gave great commands and, having strong officer presence, were able to take the agitated suspect into custody without further incident. During the investigation, it was found that the suspect had expressed immediately after stabbing the first victim his intention was now to kill the wife and her friend. With the suspect's aggressiveness toward the friend and their extreme difference in size, the suspect was approximately 300 pounds and the friend approximately 120, the possibility of causing serious bodily injury or death was real. The quick actions of these officers and willingness to engage a homicidal suspect is the pinnacle of heroism. It is because of them that there was only one murder victim that night and not multiple. Because of this, it is my honor to present each of you with the Medal of Distinguished Service. I talked about character in the beginning, and this is the character of the Arvada Police Department in the Arvada community. There are many more stories of bravery and courage that are exhibited every day by our officers, and we are all very fortunate to live and work in such an outstanding community where citizens rally behind their police officers and our police officers police like they live here. Thank you all for attending tonight's ceremony. It was an honor to recognize these individuals and to be part of Master Sergeant Larry Bennington's special recognition. As you leave, right outside, we have coffee and desserts, and we would enjoy it if you would stick around and share a few moments with us. Thank you all for being here tonight.